To be blunt, it came as a shock. I was not aware that this is something that she was contemplating doing. But in the end, she made her decision. And we have to move on as a show. I don't like it. I'm not happy about it because I appreciate her and what she has meant to me, what she has meant to the show, what she has meant to the network, what she's meant to the business.
Mina Kimes is making nearly $2 million for cluttering up a football show. I just, Stephen A sits atop and you're paying him $20 million, it just raises everyone else's expectations and frustrations. So those are my two initial thoughts on why it's over so abruptly and so quickly for Molly Qerim.
The internet isn't just buzzing, like it's shaking after Stephen A. Smith dropped a series of hints about why his longtime First Take partner, Molly Qerim, suddenly walked away from ESPN. And the more information surfaces, the clearer it becomes that this situation is way more layered than anyone expected. Her exit wasn't just surprising, it was a full-blown shockwave across sports media.
Miss Molly Qerim, longtime host for ESPN's First Take, my day job, where she has been the last 10 years. Last night, she abruptly resigned as the host of the show. And to say that I'm quite sad about it is an understatement.
On September 16th, 2025, ESPN was thrown into absolute chaos as news broke that Molly was stepping away after nearly 20 years with the network and a decade spent shaping First Take into the cultural powerhouse it is today. Fans were stunned, colleagues were confused, and Stephen A. himself looked like he had been hit with something he never saw coming.
So let me start the speculation. When I heard that it was immediate, I was like, oh, she must already have a job lined up. Mm-hmm. And the job that she has lined up must be some sort of competitor to ESPN. And so that made me, is she going to Fox Sports?
The timing alone made the whole situation feel unsettling, because just one day earlier, Monday, September 15th, Molly was on set, moderating debates with the same calm confidence and sharp precision that made her the glue holding that show together. Nothing looked off, nothing suggested trouble, and certainly nothing hinted that she was about to vanish from a job she had dominated for almost 2 decades. But by Tuesday morning, she wasn't just absent or taking a few days off. She was completely gone from ESPN. No farewell tour, no gradual transition, no smooth handoff, nothing. A sudden disappearance from a network she practically helped carry for 19 years left viewers scrambling for answers. At first, the only explanation came from Sports Business Journal, which reported that Molly was planning to leave at the end of the year. A standard controlled exit that made sense on paper. But that version of the story exploded instantly when Molly herself stepped in. Instead of staying silent or letting the narrative play out, she jumped on Instagram and dropped a statement that flipped the entire situation upside down.
Molly is a friend. Molly is a co-worker. Molly is somebody that I have leaned on many occasions in the past, as she has done when it comes to me. We've been partners on the show for the last 10 years. And a lot of times, some of these things happen and it's just uncomfortable to see. The details, quite frankly, are none of y'all business. But
her Instagram post opened with a line that instantly set off alarms. The news came out earlier than I intended. One sentence, and the entire situation shifted. That phrasing made it clear something behind the scenes had gone sideways. And this wasn't the polished farewell networks prepare for their longtime talent. This felt abrupt, unplanned, and almost like she was forced to hit the eject button without warning. The fallout hit immediately. When First Take aired the next morning without its familiar moderator, viewers were met with something they rarely see. Stephen A. Smith sitting alone at the desk, trying to hold the show together. You could see the emotion in his face as he delivered a short, careful message about Molly's exit, and the whole moment felt unusually tense for a program built on loud debates and confident energy. He said she would be missed, that he wished her well, that he respected her future goals, all standard lines on the surface. But once you really listened, you could hear the weight in his tone, as if he was choosing every word with extreme caution.
When the first job is made so easy because you're working with somebody that makes it easy for you. And that's what she did for me personally. And so because of that, I just wanted to wish her the best, let her know the love is always here from myself, from my personal assistant and my right hand, Sumatra, my security, Juvie, and my sister Carmen, and so many people that have loved her and loved on her over the years. We've got nothing but love for her.
What many fans caught instantly was the phrase, "she announced last night," which Stephen A. repeated with emphasis. That small detail suggested he wasn't prepared at all, meaning whatever happened occurred so quickly that even the face of ESPN didn't see it coming. But the real spark came later that afternoon when Stephen A. returned to his own platform, The Stephen A. Smith Show on Sirius XM. This is where he shifted from polite TV messaging to something much more intriguing, dropping subtle hints that there was far more happening beneath the surface than anyone was being told. Then came the moment that set the internet ablaze. He said there was more than what's being shared, but that it wasn't his place to reveal it, a line that only deepened the mystery and made fans believe something major had unfolded behind closed doors.
But just imagine all this time, and you're in that position. And then you get to the position where you're in another contract negotiation. You're not hearing what you want to hear. You're not hearing it not only in the money, but in also they're talking funny in terms of giving you greater role. And you're like, it's time to move on. Imagine you're in that moment. What will make you, a report comes out after you do a Monday show, not show up for work on Tuesday?
Now, this is where the story actually heats up, because Stephen A. Smith wasn't just reacting, he was signaling. He made it clear he knew more than he was willing to reveal, almost hinting that he was protecting someone or something behind the scenes. That kind of controlled teasing is the exact fuel that sends fans into a frenzy, and it did just that. But the detail that stood out the most was his repeated emphasis on how sudden Molly's exit was. He wanted viewers to feel the shock, almost as if he was saying, "Don't look at me, this blindsided everyone." And that tone wasn't accidental, it was deliberate. And it added a dramatic layer that fans instantly picked up on.
Because we talked about the whole Molly Qerim situation in the morning. We're thinking, okay, it's going to play out, and there's going to be a grand farewell, celebration show, goodbye. And she just Dear John'd him. She said, out. I was like, wow. So obviously, this is pretty obvious. At least from Molly's point of view, I don't think it was the most amicable split.
Even ESPN's own leadership had to step in and address the confusion. Burke Magnus, ESPN's president of content, admitted that the timing was completely unexpected, explaining that once the initial report leaked, everything spiraled out of their control. According to him, Molly released her statement because the situation got exposed earlier than planned. A rare behind-the-curtain confession from a network that usually keeps everything quiet. To understand why this departure shook ESPN so deeply, you have to look at Molly's track record. She wasn't just a host, she was part of the foundation. Joining ESPN back in 2006, she climbed through the ranks, starting on digital platforms before taking over as the permanent moderator of First Take in 2015. From that moment on, she helped shape the show's identity and tone, guiding debates and managing personalities in a way few others could. Her impact wasn't just noticeable, it was measurable. Under her decade of leadership,
but then you turn on First Take today, and Stephen A. Smith is opening it up, and he's bidding farewell to Molly, and it's clear that she's done for good. Like, this is it for her. I think it just speaks to the idea that whatever happened was not amicable, and that they are not parting on seemingly very pleasant terms at this moment.
Yeah, I think that was clear to me too.
First Take became ESPN's highest-rated studio show, routinely bringing in over 500,000 viewers per episode. By 2024, it had earned a spot on Sports Business Journal's list of the top 25 current studio programs, a massive achievement for a show built around debate and tension. And the momentum didn't slow. In 2023, First Take recorded its most watched year ever, dominating linear TV and exploding across digital platforms with more than 250 million YouTube views. Molly's influence stretched far beyond simply keeping the debates organized. She was the anchor that kept First Take from flying off the rails. While Stephen A. delivered explosive energy, she balanced the room with calm precision, sharp fact-checking, and a sense of inclusivity that helped reshape the show's tone in a male-dominated industry.
It's like Stephen A. put on his apology voice. You know, whenever he gets into a scandal that he has to monologue an apology for, that was the same type of voice he was using at the top of today's show.
Her rise at ESPN was nothing short of impressive. Starting in 2006 as a digital contributor, she quickly showed she could do everything, from covering major college football matchups to reporting on NFL events with confidence. Her talent was recognized early, earning her an Emmy in 2008 for her work on fantasy football, proving she could excel under pressure and deliver top-tier content on any platform. What truly made her irreplaceable was her mastery of live television. She knew how to guide intense debates, steer interviews, and keep the show focused even when personalities clashed. That level of control made her one of ESPN's most valued figures, someone fans trusted to bring clarity when the conversations got heated. Her chemistry with Stephen A. became a defining feature of First Take. For a full decade, they crafted a dynamic that fans couldn't get enough of. His fire paired with her measured, steady presence. She challenged him when needed, redirected discussions before they spiraled, and added just enough humor to keep the show fun without letting it turn into chaos. That's why her sudden departure felt like a lightning strike out of nowhere. There were no hints, no subtle warning signs, nothing that suggested trouble behind the scenes, no reports of tension, no whispers of dissatisfaction, no gradual pullback from the spotlight. In fact, the opposite was true. First Take was thriving in the ratings, climbing year after year, making her abrupt exit even more unsettling for viewers. One day, Molly was on set like nothing was wrong, and the next, she was gone without a trace. The only clues left behind were her cryptic Instagram posts and Stephen A.'s carefully controlled comments that somehow explained everything and nothing at the same time. It felt like the audience was being shown the cover of a book while the real story was locked away in a vault. ESPN's reaction made the situation even stranger. The network confirmed she wouldn't appear on any future episodes, effectively fast-tracking her exit from a planned end-of-year transition to an immediate removal. That kind of abrupt shift doesn't happen in a company as structured as ESPN unless something behind the scenes has completely fallen apart. The timing created even bigger questions about what was happening inside the network. First Take was performing at its highest level, dominating ratings and cultural conversations, yet suddenly one of its core pillars vanished without warning. For a network known for smooth talent management, this wasn't just unusual, it was a sign that something had snapped inside their normally tight operation. One thing became impossible to ignore, and this wasn't a casual contract disagreement or a friendly parting of ways. Something in the negotiations broke so badly that a respected professional like Molly Qerim chose to leave immediately rather than finish out her contract. That kind of decision doesn't happen unless the situation behind the scenes becomes completely unworkable. And while fans were confused by her sudden disappearance, what insiders were whispering behind the cameras made the situation sound even more explosive. This wasn't simply about walking away from a show, this was about leverage, influence, and a negotiation that spun out of control so fast that nobody could reel it back in. Now that we've established how stunning and chaotic this exit was, it's time to dig into what industry insiders are saying really unfolded behind closed doors, because this saga goes far beyond simple salary talks. Money was definitely a major factor, but this situation wasn't just about salaries. It was about power, respect, and a negotiation environment that spiraled completely out of control. Once you understand the financial landscape inside ESPN, it becomes obvious why this escalated the way it did. Stephen A. Smith had signed a massive extension in 2024, reportedly worth over $100 million across 5 years, locking him in as one of the highest-paid media figures in the entire sports world. Meanwhile, multiple reports suggested that Molly Qerim's salary sat around $500,000 per year, a number that looks tiny next to Stephen A.'s deal. And put that into perspective, that's roughly a 40-to-1 salary gap between the two anchors of ESPN's biggest morning show. That's not a pay difference, that's a canyon. And according to insiders, that staggering imbalance became one of the central friction points in Molly's negotiations, especially as the show continued thriving under her leadership. But here's where things start getting truly interesting. Former ESPN insider Marcellus Wiley, someone who spent more than a decade inside the network and watched Molly's rise firsthand, began breaking down what he believed was really happening behind the scenes. His perspective carried weight because he wasn't just speculating, he had lived through ESPN's internal structure and knew exactly how these negotiations typically unfolded. Wiley didn't hold back. and his commentary instantly added fuel to the fire. He drew attention to how such a massive pay gap can create tension, shift power dynamics, and ultimately send the message that one key contributor isn't being valued at the level they deserve. According to Marcellus Wiley, Molly wasn't simply asking for a raise. She was pushing for real career elevation. She wanted her own platform, her own spotlight, and opportunities that matched her decade of service and her flawless track record on live television. And allegedly, ESPN shut down almost every request she brought to the table. That rejection becomes even more shocking when you look at what she accomplished during her time with the network. She guided First Take through some of the most heated sports moments of the last decade, from LeBron James' high-profile team moves to the NFL's responses to major player protests. Her skill at keeping conversations productive, even when guests disagreed intensely, made her one of ESPN's most reliable on-air professionals. But Wiley's theory doesn't stop there. In fact, this is where things get genuinely explosive. He suggests that Stephen A. Smith's enormous influence inside ESPN played a major role in how these negotiations unfolded. That idea hits hard because Stephen A. isn't just a host. He's a powerhouse whose voice carries serious weight inside the building. Wiley's theory paints Stephen A. as an unofficial gatekeeper, someone whose support can elevate a colleague's career, yes, or stall it. His value to ESPN gives him a level of informal authority that goes far beyond his job title, making him a major factor in who gets opportunities and who doesn't. And according to Wiley, Stephen A. didn't use that influence to help Molly secure what she believed she deserved. That claim alone sent the internet spinning because, if true, it reframes the entire situation and adds another layer of tension to the partnership fans thought was rock solid. There's also evidence that lines up with Wiley's theory. Reports from multiple outlets say Stephen A.'s contract extension granted him significant input into show decisions, casting choices, and even behind-the-scenes personnel changes. There have been documented moments where his preferences shaped who joined First Take and who quietly faded out. This kind of dynamic isn't unusual in entertainment. When a talent becomes too valuable to lose, they naturally gain influence outside their official role. And with Stephen A. being the centerpiece of ESPN's programming strategy, it makes total sense that his position would carry tremendous leverage across the network. According to Wiley's theory, Stephen A. Smith has a history of using his influence to elevate certain colleagues at ESPN. But Molly Qerim was reportedly not one of the people he chose to support. That selective backing immediately raises uncomfortable questions about how those decisions are made and why someone as accomplished as Molly didn't receive the same internal push from the network's most powerful personality. The timing of everything makes the situation even more suspicious. ESPN executive Burke Magnus publicly confirmed that both sides originally agreed Molly would step away from First Take at the end of the year, while transitioning into new roles at the network. That means there was a plan. A stable, respectful, organized path forward, but somewhere along the line, something shifted dramatically. According to multiple insiders, the initial strategy was extremely promising. Molly would move into new positions across ESPN, broaden her presence, and potentially host shows of her own. It would have been a natural next step for someone with her experience, her credibility, and her decade-long record of holding down one of the toughest roles on live sports television. But that path never materialized. Instead of a smooth transition into fresh opportunities, the negotiations reportedly flipped into a harsh take-it-or-walk-away scenario. That kind of sudden shift doesn't happen unless tensions behind the scenes reach a breaking point, and based on the outcome, it seems those final discussions collapsed completely. This leads to the biggest question of all. What changed so drastically that an agreed-upon transition turned into an immediate resignation? Why would Molly decide she couldn't even remain a few more months to finish her contract? Industry sources say the answer revolves around something far deeper than money, a breakdown of trust and respect that had been simmering beneath the surface for years. Multiple outlets reported that Molly felt undervalued despite her years of lifting the show's visibility, guiding heated conversations, and representing women in a space where female voices are still rare. The emotional weight of feeling underappreciated, combined with the enormous pay gap and the sense that she wasn't receiving the same internal backing as other ESPN personalities, created an environment that allegedly became impossible for her to stay in. And when you compare her compensation and opportunities to what other on-air talent at ESPN reportedly receive, the gap becomes even harder to ignore. That broader structure paints a picture of a system where certain voices receive consistent support and elevation, while others, even those making massive contributions, stand on the outside looking in. This comparison exposes what many fans and insiders view as a major imbalance in how ESPN values its talent. You had Molly, the face of the network's flagship morning show, reportedly earning less than analysts with smaller roles on less demanding programs. That kind of disparity doesn't just look strange. It looks like a system that rewards some voices while quietly sidelining others. When you are the person keeping ESPN's most important studio show running smoothly every single day, and you discover that people with lighter responsibilities are earning far more, the frustration is inevitable. And when that frustration builds over years, it becomes a powerful force, one that can reshape an entire career trajectory. The situation gets even more layered when you factor in ESPN's financial pressures. The network has been navigating cord-cutting, shrinking TV revenue, and several rounds of layoffs, making cost-cutting a central part of their strategy. In that environment, executives may have viewed Molly as replaceable in a budget sense, even if her chemistry with Stephen A. and her skill set were absolutely not replaceable. But that explanation doesn't fully hold up when you look at where ESPN did choose to spend its money. Because at the same time they were tightening budgets, they were also handing out enormous contracts to other personalities, including Stephen A. Smith's deal reportedly worth more than $20 million per year. If the network could justify that level of investment, the idea that they couldn't meet Molly's far more modest requests becomes difficult to defend. And this is where the power dynamics become impossible to ignore. Stephen A.'s negotiation was smooth, prioritized, and ended with one of the biggest payouts in sports media. While Molly's negotiation allegedly broke down over far smaller numbers and perfectly reasonable requests for advancement, the contrast is so sharp that it practically points to the network's internal hierarchy in bright lights. The message ESPN appeared to send, intentionally or not, was simple. Keep Stephen A. satisfied at any cost and treat everyone else as negotiable. For someone who had spent a decade helping First Take grow into a cultural force, that message wouldn't just sting. It would hit with a level of professional disappointment that could push anyone toward the exit. The workplace culture questions raised by this situation are just as troubling as the money issues. If Wiley's theory about Stephen A.'s kingmaker influence is accurate, it suggests that career advancement at ESPN wasn't always driven by talent or performance, but by who had the right personal connection to the most powerful person in the room. That kind of environment can quietly stall the growth of talented people who deserve far more than they receive. And here's where the story steps into even more uncomfortable territory. Once you move past the salary numbers and contract terms, you start uncovering layers of personal tension, gender dynamics, and long-standing issues that multiple insiders claim have existed behind the scenes for years. Those behind-the-curtain dynamics paint a picture far more complicated than a simple contract disagreement. The most revealing pieces of this puzzle come from the power structures that shaped these negotiations. Everything we're learning suggests that this situation wasn't just about compensation or future opportunities. It was about respect, influence, and the internal environment that forms when one figure carries too much sway inside a major organization. To understand how deep this goes, you have to look at the boldest claims coming from industry voices. Former ESPN analyst Marcellus Wiley has been especially outspoken, describing what he believes was a long-running, unspoken friction between Molly and Stephen A. His commentary doesn't point to loud confrontations or dramatic moments, but to a subtle, ongoing disconnect that grew stronger over time. Wiley's insights paint a picture of a workplace dynamic that was far more strained than anyone watching the show ever realized. Behind the camera, the chemistry that looked smooth on air may have been covering up a professional environment full of quiet disagreements, shifting loyalties, and a growing sense that Molly wasn't receiving the backing she had earned. Wiley's revelation flips the entire First Take story on its head. For years, viewers believed they were watching two hosts with genuine chemistry and real mutual respect. But according to Wiley, much of that connection was strictly professional, held together for the sake of the show, and not because everything was smooth behind the scenes. If true, it means the on-air harmony was masking a growing tension that nobody outside the building ever saw. Think about the sheer amount of time Molly and Stephen A. spent together over a decade. Daily shows, special broadcasts, promotional tours, behind-the-scenes meetings. They spent more time together than many actual co-workers ever do. They weren't just co-hosts, They were essentially workplace partners for 10 full years. To hear that the relationship may have been maintained out of necessity rather than genuine alignment suggests a much deeper disconnect than simple personality differences. But the biggest shock comes from Wiley's comments about the larger culture at ESPN. He claims that female talent has consistently been undervalued compared to male colleagues, regardless of skill level or workload. According to his observations, the pattern wasn't random. It was systemic, built into how opportunities, salaries, and visibility were distributed across the network. This perspective paints a troubling picture of what Molly may have been dealing with. Imagine being the steady voice of ESPN's top studio show, helping elevate its success year after year, only to watch other female personalities, with less demanding roles, receive higher pay or more ambitious opportunities. If the insiders are correct, that kind of disparity would be impossible to ignore. The gender dynamics become even clearer when you examine the types of roles ESPN reportedly invested in. Wiley suggests the network was willing to compensate women well for certain positions, but not for the daily high-profile hosting job that Molly carried for years with professionalism and consistency. That contrast alone would create a feeling of being overlooked, especially for someone who helped guide ESPN's most successful debate program. The psychological weight of this entire situation would have been crushing for anyone in her position. Molly wasn't just underpaid. She was watching other women at the same network receive the kind of recognition, opportunities, and upward mobility that she was consistently denied. That sends a message loud and clear about how ESPN viewed her contributions and what they believed her future was worth. And things get even more frustrating when you look at the reported details of ESPN's final offer. While the exact numbers haven't been officially revealed, multiple industry sources claim the renewal proposal was far below what Molly was hoping for, especially when compared to deals being signed by other ESPN talent at the same time. It wasn't just a low offer, it felt like a deliberate underestimation of her value. That becomes even more insulting when you look at her track record. Molly helped guide First Take through some of its strongest years, shaping it into ESPN's premier studio show. Her ability to manage heated debates, redirect conversations, challenge viewpoints, and keep the energy balanced is a rare skill, one that isn't easily replaced, no matter how confident a network thinks it is. But the most revealing and controversial part of this saga is how Stephen A. Smith handled everything after she left. His vague comments, his refusal to share details, and his carefully worded statements created more questions than answers. And the way he leaned into business talk immediately after her exit made the situation feel even more calculated. Just days after Molly walked away, Stephen A. launched into what sounded like a pointed lecture about leverage and hierarchy, emphasizing that people need to understand their position in the business and avoid overestimating their influence. He didn't use her name, but the timing was so close that many fans and analysts saw it as a thinly veiled reference to Molly's contract dispute. Smith insisted he wasn't talking about her specifically, but the content, tone, and timing felt like a message aimed directly at anyone who dared to challenge the established power structure inside ESPN. To many observers, it came across as a subtle attempt to shape the public narrative, steer blame away from himself, and reinforce who really holds the influence. Inside ESPN, the unspoken message felt crystal clear to anyone paying attention. Know your place, don't push too hard, and remember who actually controls the room. That kind of passive-aggressive commentary hits harder than any direct statement because it lets Stephen A. send a pointed message while hiding behind general business advice. He can insist he wasn't referring to Molly, but everyone watching knew exactly what moment he was tapping into. And now the spotlight shifts to what Molly does next. The rumor mill is spinning nonstop, with multiple reports alleging she has a major offer on the table from Fox Sports. Potentially around $2 million a year, that would be a massive jump from her previous salary and a loud reminder of how valuable other networks believe she truly is. These Fox Sports rumors are especially interesting because they reveal something ESPN refused to acknowledge. Molly is a high-value talent with a proven track record. A move to Fox wouldn't just boost her career, it would directly challenge ESPN's dominance. If she becomes a major face at a competing network, that pressure could absolutely cut into First Take's viewership and cultural pull. ESPN now faces the nearly impossible task of replacing her. The network has already announced a 30 to 45-day audition stretch to test potential new hosts, but insiders are doubtful anyone can match the professionalism, balance, and on-air chemistry Molly brought every day. Filling her seat won't just be difficult, it might reshape the entire identity of the show. And here's the real question everyone's watching. Will ESPN bring in someone who pushes Stephen A? Someone with their own strong presence and voice? Or will they choose a host who maintains the existing hierarchy and avoids rocking the boat? That decision alone will reveal exactly how ESPN wants First Take to look moving forward. However this plays out, one thing is certain. Molly's exit has shaken the foundation of sports media, and the aftershocks are only beginning. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, share, and drop a comment to let us know what you think. And see you on the next one.